Our county board proceedings will now come to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Supervisor Locke with the invocation.
As we gather for this meeting, we call upon our Creator to be with us and to surround us with people who care and inspire us all to make the right decisions. Amen.
Amen. Supervisor Roble.
I'll move for the approval of this evening's agenda with one change. Resolution 27 will be number 1. It'll come before Resolution 62016.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now is the time for people to speak on anything on the agenda this evening. I know there are a lot of racetrack people here, but that is not on the agenda this evening. And according to the open meetings laws, I can't let you speak because it's not on the agenda this evening. I had talked to somebody who said they were representing you. I don't have the slip in front of me, Scott, somebody. I advised them that I would see to it that it was on the agenda for the July meeting. And I thought he was going to touch base with everybody, but apparently something happened. So I can't let anything about the racetrack go on this evening because of the open meetings laws. Is there anybody that would like to address the board on anything else on the agenda this evening? Yes. You have to state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Tom Gritt, and I'm a Circuit Court Judge in Winnebago County, Branch 1. 415 Jackson Street, Oshkosh is my business address. Also with me tonight are Judge Key, Judge Jorgensen, Judge Bissett, and all of our judicial assistants. And you obviously got a letter from us. We hope that you took the time to read those. And we're here tonight not to discuss whether or not the judicial assistants were correctly classified. We're here to discuss the process and the procedure that was done in regards to the judicial assistants. We were informed through a letter that all department heads would be consulted in an interview, and that there was either 1 or 2 interviews conducted with all department heads in regards to those people that they supervise. That was never done with us as judges. We were part of signing off on a job description that we did. Our concern is twofold. First of all, we didn't have that opportunity. In face and up close and personal, having the opportunity to discuss this is very different than signing off on a job description. And we feel that as a result, there maybe wasn't the information provided that's needed to be able to correctly classify this very unique position. Also, there was no appeal process that's covered in the compensation study, and there's concern about that. And part of the concern, as we received on Thursday evening, that the process would be that the appeal would be to the consultant, and that was there wasn't necessarily an indication whether there would be local ability for input, meaning the county board. They're asking you to approve of these tonight, but in the future there's not necessarily in place an appeals process that includes you, the local people. I don't have a recourse to a person from Illinois who did a study if I'm unhappy with her decision making. And we really think that it needs to be looked at. It should have been part of the process, making sure that all of those things were in place, because obviously with, I believe it was 323 employees, there are going to be some of those employees who don't agree with where they were placed. And as a result, the appeals process becomes critical. And if you vote tonight, a couple other things. If you vote tonight, you're voting on something that was given to you a week ago that took months and months to get accomplished. You're having tonight the process explained to you. I can't remember in the history of the county where there was such a significant study where there wasn't some form of a special meeting so that you had the opportunity to hear everything at one meeting and then later on be able to have questions, ask questions, have some time to think about it and vote at it at another meeting. So our request is that you put this off for a month. I don't think that's going to ultimately impact anybody significantly. Allow for there to be a confirmed process for appeals, and then come back and vote on whatever that process is, so everybody's making an intelligent vote, and that all the county employees have the knowledge of what the process is, not what the process might be. I'm willing to answer any questions if you have any questions.
There are no questions at this time. Is your question on the appeals process? Okay. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to address the board? Yes, come up to the microphone, state your name and address.
My name is Jeff Ogden, 1953 East Shady Lane. I'm trying to rezone the corner of CB and Oak Ridge in
Talk
Neenah.
closer to the mic.
I am trying to rezone the corner of Oak Ridge and CB in the town of Neenah. There were some questions last time we tried to rezone that the parcel is for sale. It is not for sale, so I want to clean that little piece of business up. We've tried to rezone this before. We'd appreciate your support on this. We've taken all the ideas that we have gotten and incorporated in all the wants of all the ideas that we've taken in. I have a map as far as we backed it way off the road. This building is for my personal use, for my equipment. Neighbors are over here, CB are here. Very little traffic coming in and out of here. It won't be used on a daily basis. It's just for my machinery. I have a picture of what the building will look like. And I'd like to, if there's any confusion on last time we tried this, I'm here to answer any of your questions at this time.
Any supervisors have a question of them? Well, I would imagine there'll be some debate when it comes up from the planning and zoning, bringing it forward, so.
Yep. But I am here if there's any questions. I appreciate your support.
Supervisor Shirk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for Mr. Ogden. You made it clear that this property is not for sale, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Was it ever for sale?
When it got turned down one time, my son put it on LoopNet for sale, but it is not for sale.
Okay. And I thought I was told at a meeting that as it's currently zoned, you could not do what you are planning.
That is correct.
But you were told that it really needed to be rezoned. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't live too far from there, and I guess what surprised me last time was that on my years of service on this board, usually when the planning committee from the municipality and from the county comes up with, whatever, the county board, in my opinion, or my recollection, has never, ever went against the wishes of these people, because the planning zoning from the community and our own in the county, they're pretty much trained. They're learning, they go through all this stuff, so they have a better idea than us 36 people do. So I was very amazed or stunned that we didn't go through with it. And I myself I'll be voting for it, yes, this time, that's for sure. Thank you.
Supervisor Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number of years ago, and I can't tell you how many years ago, I was on the committee, I was on the park board, and I was on a committee where we were looking for space for a dog park. And I can very well remember going on a bus trip, going around to several different places, and that corner piece of property was talked about at that time for a dog park. And I've never heard anything since, so up until now. So I'm assuming things have changed and never did get the dog park, but whatever comes about there, there have been things that have wanted to be done on there for several different people.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda? Come up to the mic.
Lori Bowers, 1710 Oak Ridge Lane. My property is directly across the street from Mr. Ogden's property, and I understand that we've addressed this. It was in March, and I don't believe anything has changed in his proposal. He's building the same building, he's building in the same place, but we are a group of residents that have all asked that this not be rezoned industrial. This is a Google map of our properties, and this is Mr. Ogden's 5 acres right here. I live across the street on 5 acres, and it's residences all the way around it. So we're hoping that even though this is an area that is becoming industrial, it's industrial to the north of these properties and not right here in our neighborhood. We're hoping that this industrial property doesn't go in there. We have no objection to him putting a building there and storing his equipment on it, but we think that can be done agricultural, just not with the particular building that he's intending to put on there. But he could I have no objection to him putting his equipment in a building. That's kind of an agricultural idea. So that's my input, that we've done this again in March, and we're here again.
Okay, did you get her name and address? Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening?
My name is Chris Baldwin. I live on 1575 Oak Ridge Road in the town of Neenah. I'm opposed to changing the zoning on the corner of Oak Ridge and CB from agricultural to light industrial. I've been opposed to the zoning change request since the first time in the spring of 2012 when it was denied. In the fall of 2015 when we went through this process, it was denied. And now we're going through the process for the third time. As a neighbor in a small community, we have 100% of the adjoining landowners and over 90% of nearby landowners opposed to Ogden's changing the zoning to light industrial, most of which have signed a petition that you should have a copy of. The area consists of single residential family homes, wooded areas, farmland, and wetlands. As we just mentioned, there is a large area of industrial space just north of us. The zoning change does not fit into our area. The plan does not fit into the area. And changing the zoning makes no common sense to me because we're surrounded by wetlands and single-family residential homes. And what is the purpose of a zoning if we're spot zoning? So we have all single residential homes, and then we're going to put a light industrial zoning right in the middle. The majority, if not all, the neighbors have moved into the area and own some land and live in a nice area next to wooded areas, wetlands, farmland, and wildlife all around. That's why we live out there. I strongly believe the term mixed use has been in part the cause of this repeated request. The Ogdens have repeatedly referred to mixed use. And I understand they have a business and they're in the light industrial and they're in buildings, but their opinion of mixed use in our neighborhood's a little different. We think of it as family homes, yards, wooded areas, wetlands again, work sheds, barns, farmland, and wildlife. We already have storage north of Oak Ridge on CB, and we went through that process where everything was supposed to be clean, landscaped, and inside. Now you drive by and there's dump trucks, cars, campers, boats, you name it. That was originally supposed to be inside, and it's all outside. It almost looks like a junkyard sometimes. We just don't want that to come further south. That's all we're asking. Another thing, that this has been going on since I believe 2012, and we're told the building does look nice, but again, it's light industrial. And since they've owned the property, they did cut down all the trees, and there's been a pile of debris, garbage, trees there for 4 years. So, I mean, they haven't even maintained that. So it just makes me edgy with going through this process 3 times, and every time we've gone through it, the story has changed a little bit. So we really don't know. They were selling the land. They weren't selling the land.
Excuse me.
Sorry. So, just in my opinion, this has proven to me that the Ogdens don't care about the neighbors, the citizens of the town of Neenah. They bought the land as agricultural in the middle of all of our residents and are requesting the zoning change for the 3rd time. They know how we feel, and they say they care, but if they did, I feel like we would not be here tonight, and they would have taken their development plan somewhere north, where they have been very clear to us that they that they own other industrial property. So it's beyond me why their plan is not constructed in an industrial area that already exists versus coming into our neighborhood. I personally talked to hundreds of people in the Fox Valley who are familiar with the area, and not one has thought this is a good idea. The town zoning and board have ignored any input from the townspeople and voted for this for the 2nd and 3rd time. We just question what had changed from the first time we went through this process. I truly hope the county thinks about the spot zoning and takes into consideration if this were to happen next to their home and property. When it comes time to vote, I hope you keep in mind the wishes of the people, the signed petition, and how this will affect the neighborhood and the overwhelming majority of people that oppose changing the zoning to light industrial. The area along Oak Ridge and CB and the town of Neenah is truly unique. Please help us maintain and preserve why we all move there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda? Yes, come up to the mic. This gentleman.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Can I go first? Thank you.
State your name and address.
Joan Michael, 1615 Oak Ridge Road.
Go ahead.
Okay. He's gotten a lot of the points that I was going to get.
You have to talk into the mic.
Oh, sorry. Now? Okay. We, on the second petition that went around the neighborhood, we said that that the building that he has planned would be acceptable to the neighbors. But we would just like some kind of, not the zoning change, the underlying land zoning, but have a restricted covenant or some kind of restriction where only his property, only his building could be there. So if, God forbid, something would happen and he would pass and the property would be sold, if you look at the sheet that we made for you, on the other side are the things that could be put on that property: a sewage sludge disposal, heavy vehicle sales and rental. There's a whole list of things that can go there with no more county or town say-so. In that corner, I mean, if it went into like a bus depot, which could be put on that land, or a correctional facility, which could be put on that land, composting facility. Those are all things that legally can be put on that land with no further No further permission from the county, no further permission from the town. The highway department that is having that corner surveilled because of the accidents that are on that corner would have, I mean, you could have an awful lot more traffic if some other business. We are not objecting to his business per se. We are objecting to changing the underlying land use so that we lose complete control of that corner. And it is spot zoning. And our petition, a copy of the petition everybody signed is on the other side of that sheet, and it lists all the different things that could go there that nobody would want in their backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
My name is Tom Wildy. I'm the chairman of the town planning commission, and I just wanted to give a brief history of what's happened on that property and why we're recommending the zoning change. About 5 years ago, the Ogdens came to us with a plan for a 40 to 50,000 square foot building. The committee rejected that, as well as the town board, because of traffic concerns in that area and just the overall size and also the neighbors' concerns. And about 2 years ago, the Ogdens came with a plan to put rental storage units there. Again, there were objections by the neighbors, and we rejected it again because of the neighbors' concerns and also because of the traffic in that busy Oak Ridge corridor. The Ogdens have now come in with a plan which we think has, very minimal impact on the neighborhood and on traffic. Again, there were, you've heard the neighbors' concerns, but we think this is a fair compromise, and the Ogdens do have a right to use that property, and that's why we recommended for approval of this rezoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to address the board on anything on the agenda? Yes.
Al Bowers, I live at 1710 Oak Ridge Lane. The property was purchased as agricultural property. That does not give someone the inherent right for it to become industrial property. I believe that the original proposal to put a giant building on that corner was a straw man proposal designed to eventually lead to a compromise to a smaller building that would keep that underlying agreement of an industrial zoning in what has always been agricultural and residential area, and I think should remain that way. I don't see anything that compels anybody to turn that into industrial property because someone purchased it as agricultural. Those are the rights that they purchased. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Seeing no one, that portion of the meeting will be closed. Communications and petitions from the clerk. Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise at this time to make a point of order. Every October during the budget session, we complain, I know I do, about no one coming to speak about millions and millions and millions of dollars of spending. The Bill of Rights and the First Amendment guarantees not just freedom of speech, but the right of the people to petition their government for redress of grievances. Tonight we have a very large contingent of people who wish to speak about an issue of importance to them. I may agree with them or I may not agree with them. That's not the point. The point is they have a right to petition their government. We, as their representatives, are their employees. We have not just a right but an obligation to listen to them. So I appeal to the body, the ruling of the chair that they cannot speak, would ask that this body allows the citizens to petition their government using their rights guaranteed by the Constitution. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have anything that they would like to address the board on? Supervisor Eisen.
My request to speak is not working. I second the motion from Supervisor Wingren to suspend the rules and permit those supporters of the racetrack to have 2 minutes each to say their piece to the board, because public presentations end at 7 o'clock.
I don't think that you can suspend the rules for that particular item. Corporation Counsel, would you?
There is nothing in our rules that say it cannot be suspended. Public comments will be heard. It's Rule 6.5. Public comments will be heard by the board on those resolutions and ordinances on the adopted agenda for that meeting. And
The public has to be notified.
There's no reason why you cannot suspend that rule and permit people to talk.
It's not a rules issue, Paul. It's a state law issue. The state law and open meetings law says that you have to give reasonable notice to the public as to what's going to be spoken of at that meeting. And you don't have a notice in your agenda that indicates that you're going to consider comments with regard to whether or not to keep the racetrack there. It's not on the agenda. And so, I mean, so you can suspend your rules all you want, but it doesn't change the state law. Let me say one more thing before you comment, Paul. If you go ahead and do that, you're subjecting yourself to a possible violation of the open meetings law, in which you will, if you're found to have violated it, you'll all be fined. And I mean, I'm fighting on another issue with regard to open meetings law right now with regard to you folks. We really don't need another one, and I really don't want to see anybody get fined. This can all be discussed at the next meeting. It'll be fully placed on the agenda as the chair said, and anybody who's in favor of this or is against it is going to have notice, and they can come to the meeting and speak. But it's not just a matter of you passing a motion to suspend the rules, because it's not a rule, it's a state law.
I will take issue with that interpretation because I am a resident of the town of Menasha, and I've attended town of Menasha board meetings for 12 years that I've lived in the town. And in the town of Menasha, citizens have the right to express their opinion on anything, not necessarily on the agenda or off the agenda. And if they can have a local rule that permits talking about items that are not on the agenda, I don't see any reason why that's any different than our suspending the rules and permitting people to talk. But I think it would be reasonable for the chair to set a limit of 2 minutes so that if you get 15 people talking, you're going to go right up to 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So I appeal the chair's ruling along with Supervisor Wingren to the county board for a vote to suspend the rules and permit.
Well, the Corporation Counsel just advised me that I can't suspend the rules for that. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Supervisor Wingren.
I'd like to go back to this issue, and that is, been a student of watching government on TV for a long time, watching the City Council of Oshkosh. Anyone can come to the City Council meeting and talk on anything that the city might have something to do with. Doesn't have to be on the agenda. It doesn't have to be noticed. It's not. If you go on the website, there's nothing on the notice when someone comes up and complains about the snow not being plowed or is plowed or whatever it is. So I guess I question that particular ruling. Again, I appeal to the body to make that decision. I believe that the people have a right to be heard.
Well, I have to take the Corporation Council's advice. That's what we have them there for.
How can I appeal that?
I don't know. Mr. Bodnar, how can he appeal it?
Well, you don't have to listen. You don't have to listen to me. But I'm giving you the best advice I have with regard to this. When the city council does that, they may have on their agenda a list that it's an open forum with regard to anybody who wants to come before the council and talk. You don't. You didn't give notice of that. You don't have it in your rules. And if you wanted to change your rules to allow that, you should have done that before the meeting. I didn't find out about this, to be honest with you, till this morning. And if I didn't find out, most of the public didn't find out. These are people that decided to show up and talk about this. It's not on your agenda. I'm already defending some of you with regard to issues with regard to open meetings violation. I don't want to have to do that with regard to something else where I'm clearly advising you that you got a problem with regard to this. But again, you don't have to listen to me. If you don't listen to me, I'm leaving. I'm not going to stay for this portion of the meeting. And I would advise anybody else to do the same thing.
Mr. Biden,
But I mean, obviously, you may know better than I do. I don't know, but I'm trying to give you the best advice possible and keep you out of trouble, Mr. Wingren.
I'm listening to what you said, and you said the state law prevents us from allowing them to speak, and I don't believe that's true. You can argue the rules maybe.
State law, as long as this was on the agenda, you could have allowed them to speak, but you don't have anything on the agenda with regard to this. If you'd put it on the agenda at least a day ago, it could have, they could have spoken if they wanted to.
Supervisor Shirk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bodnar, if we do in the future change this heading so it simply says open forum for people to speak on any subject, then we would be okay.
I think you're okay then.
Yeah.
If you change your heading and, not only these people, but if they want to come in and talk about that there's too many raccoons in the town of Poygan, that would be fine. Yeah. But that's not what you have on your agenda as far as the notice.
Because in Nino, we have an open
Right,
forum.
right, and many cities and villages do,
Yeah,
but that's
thank
not
you.
what you have there.
Thank you.
Supervisor Roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to echo what Corporation Counsel has said. I am one of the people involved in a frivolous lawsuit because I supposedly violated open meetings. If this is going to be continued to be discussed, I will leave. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Now is your chance to talk.
My button doesn't work.
Okay, I'm talking right now, first of all, to the public.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, that portion of the meeting will be closed. Supervisor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this entire discussion is quite troubling, and I am willing to follow the advice of corporate counsel and all of that, but I will be quite ready to remind you all the next time that we have a meeting and we say, when we come up to the point when you say, is there anybody in the audience who would like to address the board? If they address the board on anything that's not on the agenda, I will try to remember to remind you.
Well, I think we do try to stick to that. I mean, there might be a rare occasion that I can remember, but we had quite a discussion years ago about if we wanted to have an open forum. And years ago, they used to have an open forum, and for some reason, they took it out. I don't know the reason, but it was there at one time. Okay. Supervisor Warnke.
I just want to say that I did talk to one of the administrators at the racetrack about this issue, and I also talked to you about it. And I advised them that they would not be able to speak at the meeting. If
Are you
it was-
talking into your mic?
Yes, I am. I advised them that they would not be able to speak at the meeting if it were not on the agenda. And as far as I'm concerned, that word should have gotten out. I feel bad that these people had to make this trip and they can't get to speak too, but rules are rules, and I told him that they couldn't talk. So it's a bad situation, but I hope that we can correct it next month.
Okay. And it is on the agenda for next month. Reports from the clerk, communications and petitions.
We do have a petition, Ms. Michael filed in my office, that the zoning department has reviewed, and according to Chapter 23 of the county's general code, the petition filed by Mrs. Michael and signed by 15 residents protesting zoning report 004 and amendatory ordinance 614-2016 for the Ogden property. They've examined the petition and found it sufficient to require an affirmative vote of 3/4 of the members of the board present and voting for passage of that ordinance. So that is on file with the records for this meeting. We have a notice of claim from Paul Esslinger for damage to his vehicle's tire caused by a pothole on County Road A in the city of Oshkosh, referred to Personnel and Finance. A notice of claim from CBCS Integrated Claims Solutions for damage to vehicle owned by Ottery Transportation Incorporated, caused by the County Highways Department clearing snow off an overpass, referred to Personnel and Finance. A claim from Missy A. Krause for injuries resulting from a slip and fall at Whitman Regional Airport, also referred to Personnel and Finance. A notice of claim from Debbie Piotr for damage to their mailbox caused by a Highway Department snowplow, referred to the Personnel and Finance Committee. A claim was received from American Family Insurance for Daniel and Susan L. Hanneman for damage to their vehicle caused by an accident with a Highway Department vehicle, referred to Personnel and Finance. There's a petition for zoning amendment from Bonnie L. Parnell in the town of Nakaimai, requesting a zoning change from A2 to R1 for vacant residential use and the expansion of an existing residential lot, referred to Planning and Zoning. And then you have two resolutions from other counties. One is from La Crosse. It's in opposition to the UW Cooperative Extension Multi-County Reorganization Plan. And the other is from Waushara County, urging the amendment of Wisconsin Statute Section 43.12 related to library funding. Those will both be referred to the Legislative Committee. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On your desk, you've got a survey, a yearly survey that comes up from Parkview Health Center that goes to residents as well as their representatives. Take a look at it. It's very, very interesting to see how successful Parkview Health Center is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they would like to report? Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of things. On June 6th, Monday, the Human Service Board met and we elected our new officers. Supervisor Larry Launschlager was elected chairman. I was elected vice chairman, and citizen member Rob Patterson was elected secretary. The second thing I wanted to bring attention to everyone is being a member of the Rethink's Mental Health and Substance Abuse Committee. I have been a participant or a learner of the NACO webinars town hall series on the opioid crisis. A couple weeks ago, they had to do with the crisis in general, and I got a couple good ideas. The county executive from Erie County in New York suggested that they work with hospitals because one of the problems about the spread of opiate is our doctors and hospitals giving 2 months after they leave a hospital. Last week had to do with treatment, and I got some interesting thoughts and ideas from a jailer from Kentucky. They elect that position down there, and I emailed them to see what our jail does. And then the last one on the OPID virtual town series is public safety and community wellness, and it's going to be on Thursday, June 30th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. Anyone is free to register. I sent an invitation to each one of the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee members, as well as the sheriff and someone from his staff. I think it'd be very well to see and learn what other counties and are doing around the country on this issue. It's a very important issue. It came up at our Human Services Board Association conference in the fall. So just very informative webinars. You can go and watch past webinars by going to the NACO website. Thank you.
Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Due to the lack of agenda items, I've decided to cancel the legislative committee meeting scheduled for Monday, June 27th. Our next tentatively scheduled meeting will be Monday, July 25th.
Okay. And who's Supervisor Eisen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to report to the board reappointment to the Wisconsin Counties Association Judicial and Public Safety Steering Committee, which discusses and recommends legislation supportive of judicial and public safety issues. I would like to report attendance at the Winnebago County Sheriff's Annual Rewards Presentation, May 19th, 2016, at the Public Safety Building. Sheriff Motz recognized promotions, volunteers, and exceptional service. It was amazing how young our department members looked. I believe our department is well positioned for the future. I would like to also report attendance at Wisconsin Department of Transportation WIS 441 project business meeting, May 26th in Appleton. It's notable that before the year is over, the new span to the Roland Campo Bridge over the Fox River at Menasha will be operating, and reconstruction of the existing structure will be underway. The bridge will have 4 lanes in each direction when completed, and the full project will run to 2021. I would also like to report attendance at the first annual Von Briesen and Roper Service Corporation Public Officials Conference held in Neenah, May 31st, 2016. Attorney Andrew Phillips has over a decade been counsel to the Wisconsin Counties Association. Recently, he merged his governmental practice with the Von Briesen firm, which also specializes in municipal law. At this event, Von Briesen firm showcased their specialties in legal areas of public meetings and open records, conflict of interest, transgender issues, labor law, public finance, discipline, and medical clinics, wellness clinics. They introduced their lead counsels, and I would be pleased to share reference information with department heads who are interested, or if any other supervisor cares to learn more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to report? The County Executive's report. Approval of proceedings from May 17th, 2016 meeting. It's been moved and seconded. Any additions or corrections? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Carried. County Executive's report.
In consideration of the number of items on the agenda, I'll make my report short. I'd like to call the board's attention to Resolution 024-62016. That resolution would combine 2 projects that relate to courthouse security. It would combine repair of the courthouse plaza deck and the security addition for the courthouse into a single project, but it also asks for $250,000 of additional money based on the bids we're receiving on the contracts. Anyone that's dealing with securing contractors for major projects now is finding that you're getting fewer bids, and the bids are coming in higher than they have in recent years. And I think that's an important item to act on. With the board's permission, I would move on to appointments. I have one appointment to East Wisconsin County's Railroad Consortium. I'm nominating Larry Smith for the 3-year term, which will expire April 16th, 2019.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I have 3 appointments to the Fox Valley Workforce Development Board. Larry Lautenschlager is a mandatory member as president of Winnebago County Labor Council. And I'm also nominating Linda Mingus and Bob Peterson.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I have 3 appointments to the Solid Waste Management Board, and I'm appointing Ken Roble, Doug Nelson, and David Albrecht.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Subject to the board's approval, I am reappointing 2 members of the Board of Adjustment, Greg Kargas and Arden Schrader.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Well, we just want to welcome Mr. Roble back. He had been sick for a while, and we're glad to have you back with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank everybody, all my fellow county board supervisors, for the wonderful cards I received. I was very, very appreciative of that. And I'm very, very happy to be back here again. That's about all I can say.
Welcome back. Okay. County Board Chairman's appointments. East Central International Trade and Business Economic Development Council, the IPEC Board. I'd like to appoint Paul Sundquist and Wendy Helsberg. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. The Tourism Advisory Committee of the International Trade, Business, and Economic Development Board, Paul Sundquist of Oshkosh. So moved. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, at this time we're going to be doing the presentation of the scholarships for the Winnebago County gives out. At this time, I'd like to ask Wanda Quindy to come up here. Lillian Peck. Sabrina Mursaw. And Samantha Weiler. I may have not pronounced the names right, but some years back, our Supervisor Finch was responsible about giving money away for scholarships to students, and we appreciated him doing that. And these students wrote letters, and then the UW Extension had approved them, so that's how they were nominated for this. Wanda Quindy, welcome. And would you tell us what you're going to do?
Well, I just graduated high school at Winnebago County High School, and I'm going to be going to Fox Valley Tech with a major in healthcare.
Well, you probably just heard him say our healthcare department, Parkview, was recognized today, so you're following in some good footsteps. Lillian Peck, would you give us... some idea what you're going to be?
I graduated from Oshkosh North, and I'm going to St. Louis University to study pre-med, and I hope to be a pediatric surgeon.
Sabrina Merswa, did I pronounce it right? I knew I would do good. Okay, would you tell us what you're going to be?
I graduated from Oshkosh North High School, and I'll be going to Milwaukee School of Engineering for biomolecular engineering, and I'd like to be a researcher in regenerative medicine.
Samantha Weiler.
I just graduated from Mena High School, and I'm hoping to go to UW-Madison and study kinesiology, hoping to be a physical therapist.
How many there were 5 others that couldn't make it, but so we had given out 9 scholarships altogether. But welcome and thank you for participating. Okay, at this time, I would like to ask Mike Hurt. He's the Junior Vice Commodore or Commander of the Ray Fuller Department of Veterans, Chapter 17. He wants to issue a, yes, go up to the mic. And Joe Alk, the head of our department, I wish he would come up. Joe can maybe, or you can give the names of all the people participating with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's great to be here, supervisors. Many moons ago, I was a supervisor as well, so it's an honor to be here. This is a moment of celebration. It really is, and what happened is last February, you might have heard the word, there was an event called Operation Cabin Fever. We had Kevin Hermaning, he was a hostage during the Iran crisis, and he was a speaker at the event. And then we had a band by the name of Mistrial, and we had Miss Beverly Weber. She's the lead singer of the band, an Army veteran. Plus, she works at the Winnebago County Jail as well. And we had John Mino, who was the MC for the event. All proceeds from this event is going toward the Veterans Emergency Situation Fund. And there are veterans out there, disabled veterans, that they might have a really tough time making the rent, or they might have a tough time getting food that week or paying a utility bill off. And I want to share, as a former supervisor, Joe Wallach and his team at the Veterans Service Office, they are outstanding, and they do an excellent job of serving the veterans. And so this was truly an effort on our part, and I'm pleased to share that we have Commander Fred Hamill here tonight. And our commander, along with, we have the District 3 Commander, George Gillis. He is here today as well. And we have Dwayne Cannon. We have Rodney Collada as well. He is our treasurer. And it is really an honor to be here tonight. And I will turn things over to Joe.
Thank you, Mike. That's just tremendous. We are so pleased to receive this check. Supervisor Snyder and Warnke are on my Veterans Service Committee, oversee the Veterans Emergency Fund, and this money will go into that account and be used and directly used right to veterans. It doesn't go anywhere else. And I'd really like to just say thank you to the DAV for putting on this event. I had no idea they were going to do it, and it's just a tremendous help to the account. And I'd just like to ask everybody that if you're a veteran or you know someone who served in the armed forces and they haven't visited the Veterans Service Office, they need to. 50% of veterans do not know their benefits, and that's every time I get in front of a microphone, I want to advertise benefits. So for the veterans, on behalf of the veterans, on behalf of this Veterans Service Office, thank you. Give them a great hand.
was the check for? Okay, I don't think the board knows that. So did you announce it? Yeah, I would think that'd be good.
As everybody's making their way out, the check was $7,077, so it's quite a bit of money, so thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask, or I would like to have our HR Director, Mr. Colliard, come up and he can introduce the lady that's going to be given the presentation on our compensation study.
Our compensation study was done by a firm known as McGrath and Associates, who have a division that focuses on public sector compensation matters for advice to municipalities, counties, and other public entities. So we've been working on this project since, or actively at least, since November of 2015. So it's been a fair amount of time and a tremendous amount of work has been done. And I do want to give thanks to our department heads, supervisors, and many employees who did provide input into the study. Dr. Victoria McGrath is the principal of the firm and is here to present her executive report to the board. Same report that it was presented to the Personnel and Finance Committee, and will present her recommendation. So, Dr. McGrath.
Welcome, and thank you very much for having me this evening. We'll try to keep this short. I'll get you out of here by at least 10, 11 o'clock. So we'll try to keep it within time frame. I am Dr. Victoria McGrath. I am CEO of McGrath Human Resources Group. As Michael has indicated, we are the firm that has been selected to do the compensation study. We have been working on this report, this project, since about October, November of last year. It has culminated through a large amount of time and effort through a vast preponderance of people. What I'm going to try to do in this short amount of time is to tell you a little bit about what we've done, how we've done it, and how it's been accomplished through this time period. My background, for those that don't know me, because I have not had the opportunity to meet a vast preponderance of you, my background is human resources. I have worked on both sides of the fence, which means I have worked in the private sector. So I did work in banking and in healthcare here in the state of Wisconsin, even though my address right now is in Illinois. I do work in the state where the governors make your license plates, but I am board raised and I am originally from Wisconsin. And then I worked on the public sector side. So I did, at one point in time, work for the city of Brookfield, Wisconsin. And then we started our own consulting firm back in May of 2000. So our firm has been in business for 16 years. We work predominantly with the public sector, which means we work with counties on down. We have a little bit over 260 some municipal clients in over 29 states. So therefore, we are very knowledgeable with what happens in municipal government. There are two sides to the business. There is McGrath Consulting. That specializes in public safety consulting. So we deal with police, fire, and EMS consulting, and then obviously our side, which deals with human resources. We have done a number of compensation studies here within the state of Wisconsin. Recently, we are finishing up with Portage County. I presented their compensation study last week. We've also done St. Croix County, Eau Claire County, Chippewa County, the city of Eau Claire, and the city of Beloit. So therefore, when it comes to municipal government within Wisconsin, we're very knowledgeable, and a number of our members of our team have also worked within the state of Wisconsin. So why are we here? Next slide, please. Basically, the purpose of the study, or what we were hired to do, is this: to conduct an external market analysis, to basically look at what is the market around you doing as compared to pay. So how are you paying in relationship to that external market? Also to look at internal analysis. How is pay being compared to other positions within the organization? Next. To also incorporate the schedules within the incorporate the plan and make it manageable. Right now, you have a number of different salary schedules. Part of it is due from the fact that since Act 10, all those schedules still remain separate. In fact, at this point in time, you have 16 different salary schedules, and we'll talk about why that's somewhat problematic. Then we're going to evaluate placement into the schedule, into the system, and how that works, and what do we need to do about it. Next. Also, it can ensure that you're compliant with the Fair Labor Standards Act. Fortunately, you were right into the system. We were right in the draft form when the law changed. So we were able to look at how are you going to be in relationship to the Fair Labor Standards Act to what the new rules will be effective December 1st of this year. So we took those into compliance. Then we also were asked to look at other types of pay plans. So look at whether or not you had extra other types of pay. We'll talk very briefly about those tonight, but those are things that you will not be voting upon as part of the salary ordinance. Those are things that Michael and Human Resources will need to look at and slowly evaluate and determine what types of changes, if any, those need to be made based upon our recommendations, and finally, what type of ongoing maintenance needs to be made of the plan. All right, what did we do? We did a lot of different types of data collection. This wasn't just one piece of information. Basically, we asked for position questionnaires. Number of employees expressed the fact that our job descriptions are out of date. Some people indicated their job descriptions were up to date. In addition to that, we had people complete a job questionnaire. A job questionnaire breaks down a job into multiple parts, because some people look at us and say, well, how can you compare, for example, an equipment operator to a secretary? Those positions do very, very drastic and very diametrically different types of responsibilities. A position questionnaire helps us do that. We'll talk about what that questionnaire looks like, but it breaks a job down into a whole bunch of different components that helps us evaluate that. We did do interviews with people that were considered department heads by the county. So anybody that ran a department and was considered a department head, we spent considerable amount of time with, at least 2 occasions. Talked about how that department was run, what types of positions they had, what kind of responsibility those individuals had. We then met with representatives of employees. I brought 2 additional consultants in, and we met with those folks. In addition, we collected data from 36 different organizations. Those organizations came from the meetings with department heads and with employees. That list can be found in your executive summary. With that, we actually surveyed 322 different county positions and got data on those positions. So therefore, we collected what the salary ranges were for those positions. We also collected what people were actually making in those positions. So if I was actually looking at a legal secretary, for example, I wanted to know what legal secretaries were actually making, not just what the salary range was. Because sometimes a salary range really is not telling me the whole story. I want to know what, if I had a legal secretary in Outagamie County or in Portage County or whatever the county was that we were looking at, I wanted to know what those folks were actually making, because that tells me a story of what the market is versus just a salary range. I want to take a step back for a second, because this is something I hear a lot from department heads and especially from employees. And one of the reasons why you hire a consultant to do a compensation study is this. When we look at a compensation study, what is a compensation plan? And basically a compensation plan is a hierarchy of positions where you as an organization say this is what we're going to pay for this position. Based upon the skills and the responsibilities for this position, we're not going to pay anything less than, and we're not going to pay anything more than for this position. And what I hear from department heads all the time, and what I hear from employees, but you know what? My employee is really valuable, or I have this as an employee. I have a bachelor's degree, or my employee does that. And that's wonderful. What I need to ferret down and what I need to look at is if that employee were to leave tomorrow, and I have no knowledge of that, but if that employee were to leave tomorrow, what is required of the position? What are the skills, responsibility, education, knowledge, judgment, whatever it is, required of the position? And that's how we're going to pay the position. That's what a compensation system is. And that's the foundation that we have built for this organization, is what's the hierarchy of positions and what is the salary range around those positions for Winnebago County. How you move through that system may or may not be based upon performance. In this organization, it is based upon performance. And that was a very clear directive both by the county executive, both by Human Resources, and by the Personnel and Finance Committee, that it needed to remain a performance-based system. That's when the employee becomes the issue. How does the employee move through the system? So, that's what we're looking at constantly, is the position, not the person. Here's some of the issues you have with your current system. Number one is this: you have 16 different salary systems. That's through no fault of anybody other than the fact at one point in time you had 16 separate unions. At one point in time you negotiated 16 separate unions. You had positions that were locked in these different unions and in these different salary systems. As a result of that, all of those salary systems are constructed differently. You have some systems that are very, very small. So from minimum to maximum, they're only 4.84%. You have some that are very large. They go 56%. So when you turned and you converted those automatically without doing anything to it to a merit-based system, employees got kind of confused. Because for some people, what a merit-based system for some people is going to be totally different from a merit-based system for somebody else, because how my salary system, how my pay range is constructed is very, very different. So for a stellar rating for somebody is going to be totally different, a stellar rating for somebody else, because my salary range is very different. You could have 3 people all with the same job title be in 3 different salary systems all working right next to one another. Plus, in addition to that, some of those people could be 37 hours and some of those people could be 40 hours, but yet they're all called the same job title. Talk about confusion. Okay. In addition to that, one of the other issues you have is all those salary schedules don't fit real nice together, and they all kind of overlap. And so you've got some people that all may be called the same thing, but their salary schedule looks like somebody else, and then they all kind of slam up against one another. And then you've got some folks where the supervisors might not necessarily making more money than their subordinate does. Now, the employee might think that's okay. Supervisors might think that has a little bit of a problem with that, because especially in some cases, some supervisors may actually be taking pay cuts to become the supervisor because of how the pay ranges don't align very nicely. So that's a problem. Okay? When it comes to looking at how your salaries compare to the external market, I've got bad news and I've got good news. The bad news is this: when it comes to your minimum salary schedules, when it starts your minimum salary, how you hire people, 43% of the data that I had of the positions that we looked at, 43% of them are falling below the average market rate, which means that when people go to try, when your supervisors go to try to hire folks, they're saying that your minimum salaries aren't attracting people to the jobs. And so what's happening is that they're looking to Human Resources and they're saying, well, we got to hire higher than our minimums. Which goes to your second problem, and the problem that I'm not fixing at this point in time is that means we're starting higher than your minimums. But your people inside your salary ranges haven't moved. So that means not only are we starting higher than your minimums, we're starting higher than what your current employees are actually making, which is causing another problem. Now, the good news is that when you look at what your people are actually making compared to what people are actually making in the market, they're doing okay. The problem is they're not moving within that salary system. And that's a major problem. If there was one issue that we heard consistently walking through every employee group, is that I came here and I saw that salary range and I was told this is my salary range, this is my minimum and that's my maximum, and I haven't moved. And I've been here for 5 years, 8 years, 9 years, but yet Susie over there was hired 2 years ago and she's making more than me because she negotiated a rate higher than what I'm making. And employees are getting frustrated with that because they're not moving. They expect to see movement within that salary range. And so my question is to you when I came here is that, all right, do we have salary ranges at all? Because if they're not going to move, then let's not lie. Don't put out a salary range and then to look to the employee and say, we're kidding. You're not going to get there. So if you're going to have a salary system and you're going to have salary ranges and you're going to tell people that we're going to move you based upon merit, then you got to fund the system and move the employees because that's what they're banking on. You know, I always get this from all kinds of people. Well, you know what? Employees, you know, are paid by taxpayers. Well, you know what? An investment in your community is an investment in your employees because you provide a service to your community. That service is provided through your employees. Because without them, you're not providing a service. So the question becomes how you pay them definitely means they're giving you their skills and ability to provide that service. So basically, here's the major issues you have. Your minimum salaries are falling behind the schedule, so we need to do something with that. You definitely have an internal equity issue that we need to fix. Compression, you've got two compression issues. One of them we definitely fixed to the degree that we can, and that is especially in your public safety areas, to some extent in your highway department, definitely in your healthcare department. You've got something called compression based upon overtime, where salary plus overtime means some of those people are making more money than their supervisors. I can fix some of it. I can't fix all of it. In some cases, just because of the work they do, because of the problems you have in trying to get staffing, in some cases those people are going to make more money than their supervisors. But we've tried to at least put a little bit more distance between those supervisors so it's not happening all the time. It's happening on a more infrequent basis. The in-range compression, where people are within that range, this is something that we're not going to be able to fix at this point in time. People are in that range. They're all bunched together. You don't have enough money at this point in time to fix this. That's going to be a long-term solution. So here's the recommended schedule. Basically, we are recommending that you have a schedule that looks very similar to what you currently have. I'm going to talk about it kind of in pieces. It still has 4 ranges. Range B has a control point. That control point is now the average market rate. I have an example that I'll walk through in just a minute. The minimums are now more in line with the market, which is why there's a cost associated with this. The cost is getting people to those minimums. The goal is now not to get to the maximum. The goal is to get to the control point, because the control point is the market rate. That control point is skewed more towards the beginning of the salary schedule because I want people to at least get to market. If you're not going to be giving folks a lot of money in order to move them through the schedule, at least get them to market so you know that you're paying them based upon what the average market rate is. It is still merit-based. The union and the elected official schedules still remain the same. We were not hired to look at those. How did we put positions within that salary schedule? It's based upon a number of factors. All those factors align one another, so you've got to be careful, because if you move a position, you could have a domino effect on how other positions are affected. The first thing we did is we looked at the position questionnaire. Those questionnaires were key Because as I said before, we looked at what people do in those positions, and that questionnaire really breaks it down, and it breaks it down into all these different elements. All these different elements break out to a whole bunch of other different factors. These factors are geared towards municipal government. So when we look at education, for example, it doesn't necessarily mean formal education, because if we look at a highway worker, a bachelor's degree really doesn't mean anything. But yet certifications are very critical. You know, a CDL is very critical, or wastewater certification may be very critical. So that is, those are the types of elements that we look at. We look at decision making. We look at complexity of judgment. Those are all types of issues. Let's say, since I'm picking on highway at this point in time, a highway worker may not get a lot of points, for example, when it comes to education and certification, but they may get more points when it comes to equipment, because that's when they're handling multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment. Or they may get higher level of points for specialized working conditions, where an office worker may not get a lot of points because they work in a nice office. I know the HVA system isn't the greatest. But at the same point in time, they're going to be on call. They have to work outside, and so they're going to get higher points for those types of conditions. So we balance all of those points. Those points add up and give us ideas of what pay grades it should be going into. Next thing we look at is what's the average market rate. So we look at a high equipment operator and say, okay, the average market rate says this is what an equipment operator is making in the external market. How does that align with the points? So we take a look at that. We look at compression. What's the salary plus the overtime? How do I have to take that into account? Then I look at internal equity. If we have a progression? For example, do I have an equipment operator 1, 2, 3? What does that need to be looked at? Where does that fall in relationship to the supervisor? Is there enough room for the supervisor to get a promotion and make it worthwhile for that individual? So all that stuff needs to look into place. So if you look at the salary schedule, next slide. This is just a very, very short piece of the salary schedule. That's how all those positions are placed. So if you're going to make a change and you're going to say, okay, I want to move the administrative associate, and I want to move that position higher, that's going to now change what the administrative associate 3, 4, 5 is going to be, and how that's going to place. Is that going to place it outside of the external market range? So all those factors have to be taken into account when looking at how do we place the position. As we said here, range B is the control point. So it's a shorter range. There's less than 10% to get from the minimum to the control point. Again, the goal being get to the average market rate. There's a longer spread between range B and range D, which is the maximum of the salary range. So again, merit will still take place. Merit will still be the same type of system that Human Resources has developed before, where there's still shares in between the different ranges. But the focus needs to be getting people to the control point first. There are a lot of folks that have years of experience here within the county that are not yet at the control point. So there's going to need to be a plan in place after it's approved, assuming that it is, that you're going to say, we're going to need to start devoting some money over the next couple of years to start moving those folks that may have 4, 5, 8 years of experience that still have not yet reached the control point. Because you do have some folks that are not there yet. But right now, there is a price tag attached to this, and you have to first A, approve it, B, implement it, and then worry about how you're going to spread people through it, because you can only do so much at a time. Okay? All right, as we went through this process, we did a lot of cleaning up We did a lot of cleaning up of titles, administrative, clerical. They were in a number of different pay grades, and so we cleaned up what they were, what kind of qualifications they need to have. So a lot of them that were not grouped together may be grouped together now. I spent some time with facilities and human services. With human services, not only did I meet with the director on multiple occasions, I also met with his supervisory staff because that department is just so large. It made more sense to do that. We created progression levels, for example, equipment level 1, 2, 3, and what those should be. And if we did create levels, there has to be what those responsibilities will be and how do you get to them. It can't be just because. If there was no reason, then we got rid of them. So we did all that. Like I said, we cleaned up all the FLSA information and whether they were exempt or non-exempt. Like I said, we have done a lot of preliminary work. There may still be some issues that we still have to deal with as department heads still look at them. A couple of individuals have come to Michael and said, hey, it looks like we might be missing a position. There might be a position where we talked about putting it at a pay grade and it didn't get there, so we still need to deal with that. But we have involved department heads a lot. Again, those individuals that are considered department heads through this process so that the goal is to get it right. But the other thing is we also have to look at it objectively because sometimes department heads are very, very passionate about their positions and we need to look at it holistically as how does it fit in with the big picture of the county, not necessarily how does it fit in with just their department. Okay? There's a cost to this. The cost is only for me, what I look at is what is the cost to get people to get into the schedule? And really the cost for the schedule is to get people on the schedule. And that's the cost to get people up to the minimum. If they're already on the salary schedule, then they're just going to stay there at this point in time because movement through the schedule is based upon performance and merit. So there's not a cost for implementation. There still may be a cost to the county to continue with the merit-based program. So basically, it's just placing people to the minimum. That cost at this point in time, just to the minimum, doesn't mean, it could mean they've been here for 1 year, that could be they've been here for 15 years. It's just placing them to the minimum. That cost at this point in time is estimated to be about $594,000 or about 1.44%, which in the grand scheme of things, compared to a lot of my compensation studies, is relatively inexpensive. I know most of you just gulped, but it still is a nice price tag. Anyway. Okay. Annually, what you would need to do is annually that schedule does need to currently be adjusted. So you need to look at that schedule and say, does it need to be increased based upon the cost of living? You may want to look, and that's something that Michael and I have talked about, if it's implemented this year, 2017, you may want to leave it alone 1 year and use the money to push people through the range versus put money on the range, but we'll have to see what happens to the economy first. And then obviously the focus needs to be putting the money on the schedule to move people through the range. Once the schedule is approved, there is a formal appeal process. That process has not yet been has not been told to anybody. And it's not because it's a secret, and it's not because we're withholding it. It's because you can't appeal on something that hasn't been approved yet. And people don't know where their final placements are yet. We will be going out and doing employee interviews tomorrow, or presentations tomorrow and Thursday. There are some positions, as I've indicated to you, where Michael has found where we've inadvertently left them out. So if somebody looks at the schedule and finds their position is there, that's not a hint. You know, we want to make sure that we've got all the positions on place. Like I said, there have been some positions that we've talked about where we thought we had moved them and they have not yet been moved, and so we want to clean those up. So once we have that and those are done, then we will send out to employees a formal appeal process. That appeal process is a form that employees complete. The supervisor reviews it as well as the department head. It does come to me. My goal is to make sure that positions are placed correctly, and the reason why it comes to me is it needs to go through this same process. It needs to go through what was submitted the first time, what was changed since the first time, what does the point factor look at, what's the market have to say, how does it impact other positions? Because a person who may not appeal may also have their position changed based upon an appeal. And so it needs to go through that process. And so Michael has allotted a time frame before its actual implementation to make sure that we go through that. If I have questions on those appeals, I will be talking to Human Resources. I will be talking to department heads. I don't do this in a vacuum. It doesn't make sense for me to do it in a vacuum. You know, I need to make sure the goal is to get it right, not to sit back and say, well, I did it right the first time and I'll be darned if I'm going to show that I did it wrong. I could care less if I got it wrong. The goal is to make sure that we get it right when we get it done. So there will be an appeal process once we know that we have the positions in the right spot when we actually tell people what those positions are. And that will be done within the next couple of weeks. So that will be done. And then ongoingly, after that has been done, as positions come and go throughout the year, Michael will have a process that either he can do or he can work with us to do to make sure that that process continues to keep the plan updated going forward, and he'll work with his Finance and Personnel Committee to do that. So, other than that, I'm just going to really whip through other things that we talked about. These are things that are for future discussion, but just so that you know that we looked at them because we were asked to look at them. Other things we were asked to look at was out-of-class pay. You have a whole bunch of different ways you do it right now. We're recommending that for those that have out-of-class pay, that right now that they have to be working in a different position for more than 2 weeks, and that they're adjusted to the minimum of the pay range. Dispatcher, the dispatch department has that for the lead worker. If they're being a lead worker for the entire shift, they get that. On-call pay, we've made some recommendations for public health, courthouse, and human services. That's in the book. Call-in pay, we standardized to 2 hours. You have like 3 or 4 different practices right now. I don't know how payroll keeps it straight. So we're trying to say, try to be standardized at this point in time. Shift differential, you have a whole bunch of different shift differentials. We've put in the book or in the report different ways in which to standardize shift differentials, at least down to 3 different methodologies versus the 5 or 6 you have right now. You have different ways to do training pay, and we've given you a standard way to do training pay for the entire organization and one for CNAs, because right now CNAs is a real hot button. It's hard to find them, and if you can pay for training, go ahead and do it. For and last one is you still have folks that are 37, 40 hours. Obviously, that's a budget issue. The more you can standardize those to one, at least in the same department, try doing that because it's really problematic for those that work next to one another. Benefit review. Of course, obviously with the Affordable Health Care Act, that's pretty much being standardized. You pay 85% of the premium, 90% if it's tied with a risk assessment. When you're at the 90%, you're comparable with your surrounding folks. 85%, you're a little bit below. We're recommending you try to get that 85% up, but then continue to monitor for the Affordable Health Care Act. Dental, you're on the high end of the contributions, so no changes there. Sick leave, you're a little bit on the low end. Almost everybody around you earns 1 day per month. You only earn 8 days, so we're recommending increasing to 12. You've frozen your sick leave banks. That's probably a real cheap benefit that you probably shouldn't have gotten rid of, so we're recommending that you bring that back, and we gave you some recommendations on how to do that. That's more cost effective both for you and the employee. Vacation schedules, you used to have 12. You now have 5 schedules. We're telling you how to reduce to 4 and gave you some recommendations for that. Floating holidays, you're about the only one in the area that has 2 different floating holiday schedules. Not sure why you need 2, so get down to 1 and pick one and stick to it for everybody. And then the last one is deferred comp. Everyone liked the deferred comp that was in it, but apparently you haven't really looked at who is running the program and how it's been monitored for quite some time. So there was some suggestions to say, hey, maybe it's time to kind of dust that one off and spruce it up a little bit. So we'll skip to the summary. So basically, in summary, as you compare it to the external market, your minimums are falling. You've got a lot of in-range compression issues. We've cleaned a lot of stuff up. Basically, we've given you a very solid foundation where you now have everything on one salary schedule. We've taken all 16 schedules and given you one schedule so that you can really look at that internal equity issues. And so it's really, I think, given you a good foundation. I think there are some positions that need to be cleaned up, and I think that can happen over the next month or so, and then employees have their opportunity. There always will be employees that will appeal. That's nothing unusual, and we look forward to that. And with that, do you have any questions? I tried to talk
Some of you have to raise your hand. Yes.
Hi, Karen Powers, District 25. You probably are aware that we have heard from every single judge who says there's a problem with the judicial assistant, that none of them were interviewed, and you say you've interviewed all department heads. One judge said that his judicial assistant's scale has been frozen for the last 10 years. They were given a category of 18, which is the same as a janitor at the highway department. The admin assistant at the DA's office is 19, and also the confidential secretary at the DA's office. The executive assistant to the county executive is 21. The administrative assistant at the sheriff's office is 22. The office manager at the DA's office is 24. One judge told us that by this new range of 18, that the pay range has now been decreased, and this does not seem to make any sense at all. As I read these letters, which judge did you talk to when you were making these evaluations? So you said spoke to all department heads. What's the department head of a judge?
Mike?
In the county organizational structure, the department head is the clerk of courts, who's a county employee and a county official. Judges, of course, are state employees and state officials. So the judicial assistant position, excuse me, is a rather unusually placed position. It's a little bit of a hybrid between a state and a county function. But in the county organizational structure, the department head to whom they report is the clerk of courts. So the way we treated that position was to treat the judges, in this case, as the direct supervisor, because in practice, at least, that's how it works, in that they report or respond to the wishes of the judges in each branch, but that the department head is the clerk of courts. So when it came to, for instance, filling out the position questionnaires, those were throughout the county organization reviewed by the supervisor of the position. So the judges did review and sign off on those questionnaires. I've got a copy in my folder signed by all 6 judges. And when it came time to department head meetings, we just scheduled those with county department heads, which don't include the state judges.
Now, based on the ranges for these other similar assistants and managers, 18 is considerably lower than a 24. And if we have judicial assistants who've been frozen for 10 years, there has to be a problem here somewhere.
We've had a lot of positions that have been frozen for a lot of years, so that's not the only position that had been frozen. The vast preponderance of employees have been frozen for a number of years, so that is a problem that is countywide, not just with judicial assistants. We definitely will, because I did receive the information from the judicial assistants, and those, along with other positions, we'll take a look at those.
Okay.
Mr. Norton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple questions. This executive summary that you talked about, Mike, will we all be getting this executive summary? Because I didn't get one about the report. I didn't get one of these. I just got I think in my packet I got an SS Herald, who's on the PNF committee. He got a copy of the salary thing and compensation plan, but nothing more. Is that the executive plan?
No, there is a document that's McGrath Company's executive report. It was presented to the committee. It's available on our intranet site, but we can certainly get you a copy. I don't know it was included in the packet. Must have been omitted.
Second, about one of the benefits was talked about, and a person asked me a question, and I'll state it to you, and you can answer it. Why do the non-union upper management, etc. people get 4 floating holidays while the rest of us only get 2? Now, it was addressed that it was recommended that this be changed. When will this be changed, and will be changed whatever that policy is when the total plan comes into effect?
We're recommending that you hold off on the other types of benefits until you get the comp plan done, and then slowly chip away at all the other types of benefits. There's a lot of benefits that have to be changed, and you need to look at, when you make those changes, what are the impact to the employees on those changes? Because you don't want to take away a benefit to folks, and you need to look at, do you have to grandfather some folks in, or can you make the change now? So I don't know what his plan is, but I would say you need to look at what are the things that you need to take, when can you take a look at those, and when's the best time to chip away at those other types of benefits. There's a lot of different variations on all those plans out there that have to be looked at, but careful how you do that so you're not taking things away from people as you're doing it.
And my last comment or point is, it's good that you said you're going to be educating and informing the employees the next couple of days. I take that to mean every employee in this county, because I don't want it to happen with this plan what happened to the healthcare plan a few years ago, where it was very rolled out or informed to the employees. But I've heard that you're very well informed of this plan if you have a computer, but if you don't have a computer, you don't know much about this plan. So I'm glad you're addressing that. And I guess what you just told us is the next couple of days you're going to try to inform everyone in this county about this new plan. Am I what I'm getting, right?
Well, if I may, we do have employee meetings set up. I think there is a total of 7 different meetings. We got that information out to all departments. I know that some departments don't have access to the intranet, for instance, which is the main method we use to communicate with employees. So the only process we have, the one we've developed, is I send that to department heads as well by email, and department heads, especially that have employees without access, to the computer system, have ways of getting that out to people in their departments. So we're kind of relying on department heads to do that. With regard to all employees in the county, though, we have 1,200 employees, 3 shifts. Many of them can't be taken off a shift, to come to a meeting. No, we're not going to be talking to 1,200 employees over the next 2 days, but we're at least going to try to get the information out as well as we can.
My point is that I'm trying to, and more than just the basic using this computer, because if this uses the computer, you're missing a lot of employees. That's my point, is that,
And the other thing we have to also be aware of is that this is for everybody, because there still are union employees, and those union employees are not affected by this plan. So they're still on their union contracts, and it doesn't affect them.
All these lights don't work, so just hang on. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like Dr. McGrath to address a Section 2C that addresses the appeal and take into account, when this is going to be revisited and revised, that with appeals being decided by McGrath Consulting Group, whose decisions regarding appeals will be final, I'd like to say unequivocally the county board's decision is the decision which is unequivocally final. And the second thing is, I don't see any reason why the appeal process cannot be spelled out for the county board to approve as we go through. It's a non sequitur that you can't have state an appeal process until after you've got all of the work done. We can have a general process that we can agree to as you go ahead. Thank you.
Just a minute. So can you just answer them, or what?
Oh, I didn't know if it was, I thought it was a statement, not a question.
Oh, okay.
The appeal process actually is in the policies and procedures manual, and it is all written out, and the forms are already done, so it can be very clearly put in the executive report. So it's not that it's not hidden, it's just not in the executive report.
Supervisor Scher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did I understand that we should have received the executive report in our packet? I must have overlooked it somehow. Because I see some people have it. But, well, I saw it, Greg, you had it. Okay, so a few people got it, but so most don't, and we're going to be asked to vote on it?
You aren't going to vote on it tonight. You will get a copy if you haven't got a copy.
The other issue, I agree with the comment about the appeals process. Since it's already written out, I think it's incumbent on us to see it before we actually vote on this process. The second thing is, it seems to be a little bit semantics to say that the judges aren't department heads. Legally, they're not, but they do run their department. And I'm not sure how we were able to describe and classify the employees, the judicial assistants, if we didn't talk to the assistants or to the judges that supervise them. So that's a question.
Yeah, we have no objection with getting further input from the judges. Obviously, we've got some at this point. My point was really just that we didn't treat the judges really any differently than anyone else in their position in the county organization. So they are supervisors, and we got input from the judges in the way we get input from supervisors. It is a unique position. We're trying to follow a consistent process that way.
But they didn't get interviewed?
No, but there are several hundred supervisors in the county, and to interview every one of them would probably double the length and triple the cost of the study.
Supervisor Fari. You done? Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In addition to the information furnished to this body, which I find lacking, I will request that, for instance, I'm looking on page 3, and I'll deal with the one on the top, defines mental health technician, department, recommended title, and then you have your control point, or I call that mid-range, another term. I would like to see what their current range is. I need to see a comparison between what they're currently receiving and what's being proposed. Can that be furnished?
I have a spreadsheet that Dr. Grath provided me with that contains all that information. Frankly, it's too big to print out in a consistent format, but I can certainly provide you with that, or we can think about a way we can make it available to the full county board in a readable format.
I assume that's a general question we all would have, because I need to make that comparison. Another point in regard to the appeals process. We need to ensure due process in that appeals process. So I would ask you to consider that. And I agree with Mr. Eisen. This board is a determining factor on many of those issues. It relies heavily on your department, but we need to certainly approve that process. So I look forward to something that's a little revised going forward. Thank you.
I don't want to disagree that you have the final decision in any way, shape, or form, but I think I also need to also be a little bit a word of caution, because the question's going to be is if you're going to be starting to look at individual positions, the question that I'm going to ask you is how are you going to make the basis or the decision on individual positions? You know, there are many county boards or city councils that have gotten into you know, when they start saying, I'm going to start picking and choosing what positions I'm going to make changes on, you know, as I indicated before, the question becomes, how is that going to impact and look at the entire schedule? Because, you know, I can, you know, that one change could have a domino effect on a whole bunch of other different types of positions. So again, and you're right, I think you have, you have the overall compensation plan is your final decision. In every way, shape, or form. But if you're going to start saying, well, this position needs to be changed or this position needs to be changed, my first question is, what criteria are you making that decision on? And you are going to have a number of employees who are going to start complaining and being disgruntled as to why is my position being picked and chosen, and saying, well, why is my position being lowered or increased where this position is or isn't? So just be cautious of that, and I'm trying to say that politically correct without offending anybody.
If I might respond, I'm not referring to an individual classification using that term.
Right.
I'm referring to the defined process,
right.
Which needs to be in writing, detailed, and approved by the board. That's my position.
Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This study was provided, to us county boards, last week, kind of. This is really not enough time, anyway, for me to review and discuss the study. The study is being explained tonight, which you're doing a nice job, but that doesn't make much sense that we also might have to vote on it tonight.
We aren't going to vote on it tonight.
Well, according to this, it's to adopt it.
I understand that, but it's
Okay.
already arranged.
Okay.
That it's not.
The study also indicated that department heads were interviewed at least twice. Now we found out that you overlooked the judges and went to the clerk of courts, which I think you're going through the back door, especially when you want to cut some of their salaries to the tune of $1.27. Now, if I cut your job 5% and I had to work with you, you're going to be a very disgruntled employee, are you not? It's a yes or no question. But that's what you plan on doing.
No one's salary is going to be cut by
Well,
implementation of the plan.
the way I understand it, there's a very good shot at it on what I've got from the judges, all right?
That's incorrect.
Okay, to table this for 1 month will impact nothing. It will, however, allow us a chance to view and review everything, some decisions, and make some concerns. To formalize this process so we all can vote on it intelligently. Also, I'm speaking for myself now. I never did believe in pay for performance. And the reason being is that there's always somebody will help somebody else out better. They're my little buddy, or I like the way this person does it, or whatever. And the other person who does the same job doesn't get the same rate of pay. And it's happened. It happened not to me because I was in the same department, but to other people that I was in, we did the same job. We got a bonus, anywhere from a little over 3,000 up to 10. We did the same exact job. We rotated every week, but that's the way it was. And what really scares me is when you said that everything was interviewed, and it never really was. So I'm very skeptical on what's going on. And I hope between the two of yous and you that you'll be a little more upfront with this county board, because we're the ones going to have to listen to the department heads. So, I said my piece. Thank you.
Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to begin my remarks tonight with an anecdotal story, and that is a company in the business that I am employed in has 1,200 salespeople nationally, and recently, within the last week, cut 250 of those employees. In regards to the compensation study itself, is this a snapshot of today?
Well, when you do a compensation study, when you do the market data, yes, always when you get the market data, it's a snapshot in time. That's correct. What you do then is you annually look at what the market is doing, and then periodically, every 3 to 5 years, you go out and do another mini study to make sure you're keeping up, or what is the market doing that's correct.
Follow-up question would be, if so, which is true, how does it reflect on those positions the previous decade? Were we higher, potentially, 9 years ago, 4 years ago? How do we know?
I'm not sure I quite understand the position, your question. You're always going to have positions that are going to have ebbs and flows in the market that are going to need market adjustments. That are positions that are going to, for example, right now I can tell you you're going to have trades positions, dispatch positions, CNA positions, that are very difficult to find, and you're going to have the market adjusting as a result of that and increasing as a result of that. For a while it was IT positions. You had to increase IT salaries because you couldn't find them, and all of a sudden you had the IT bust, and then you didn't have to do that anymore. So you're always going to have ebbs and flows in positions. You're going to have to continually look at your compensation system and adjust it accordingly. This isn't a one-time thing that you do once and you don't touch it, because if you don't do that annually, then you've wasted your money, because then you're going to have to spend another X amount of thousands of dollars in 3 or 5 years' time to readjust it again. So you should be annually looking at what's happening to that market and making those types of adjustments. And if you do that, then you're not going to have to spend a lot of money to readjust your compensation schedule dramatically. To give an example, I did compensation studies to 3 or 4 different organizations in 2008 and 2009. They asked me to come back in 2014 and 15 to update their schedules. They did what we had recommended that they do through that time period, and as a result of it, we had to make just minor adjustments to a few positions and tweak their schedule a little bit, and they were good to go going forward. So if you keep up with your schedule and keep up with those positions, you're fine. And that's what we're trying to do here, is to build you a foundation and to take those 16 schedules that you have that really are problematic in a number of ways and put a foundation in place. So I think that's what you have to take a look at, is what do you have now and what do you have going forward.
Thank you. In regards to your comments about the merit-based system being so confusing to so many people, if that's true, and if we're going to implement this compensation plan, why is the merit-based pay system part of this resolution, and why do we just not repeal it?
A, because the Finance and Personnel Committee has indicated that it will continue to be a merit-based system. B, the system now is consistent so that the ranges are consistent and everybody is now on the same pay plan. If you stay with what you currently have, it will continue to be a problematic merit-based pay system, because each pay system is different. That's what causes it to be problematic, because I could be on a merit-based pay system where my range is only 4%, where this other pay range is 56%. Now everybody, assuming it gets approved, is on the same pay plan and my range is the same. So a merit-based stellar rating is now going to be the same amount of shares, because this range is now consistently the same. And so therefore there is consistency in that merit-based system. We were not asked to look at anything else other than a merit-based system.
Sure. Thank you for your comments, and I would only add to that one of the reasons why we implemented, at least from my understanding, one of the reasons why we implemented the merit-based pay system was because we had a certain pot of money, and that pot of money was short of providing a raise across the board. So that's why we implemented that from the get-go. And I did bring that up at the last person on finance meeting too. So if we're going to give everybody, most employees, a raise, my only comment, and not a question, is why would we still fund the merit-based pay system? One of the biggest issues you brought forward was new hires potentially making more than existing employees. If that's the second biggest issue that you found in the compensation study, why are we not addressing that? Or is that in part a fault of the previous labor unions?
That's in part right now based upon the different salary structures that you have and how some of those salary structures have now fallen below the market. And so therefore, for example, you have a number of positions. I know Michael indicated that the Sheriff's Department right now was holding some potential offers, waiting to see if the system was going to be approved because the current system is too low and he can't hire anybody at that rate. So what they're doing to compensate for that is to hiring people higher within the salary range, because people currently within the salary range have been frozen for so long and haven't moved up until this last year. You're having to hire people higher than what people are currently making. So if you keep the current system, you're going to continue to have that problem because your hiring rates are too low. So unless you do something with your current systems are inadequate to hire new employees at some of the salary ranges that they're currently at. So you're forced to hire higher than what they're currently at. So you're right, we're not fixing at this point in time where people currently are within the salary ranges, because that's going to cost more money.
Correct. In regards to this term freeze and frozen that I've heard numerous times tonight, I would like that to be part of the information that we get for the next meeting too, because I've been sitting here long enough to know that we've instituted any number of raises for whether it be union or non-union employees in Winnebago County. So that might be something I would like to see, is which departments have instituted which raises over the course of the last decade maybe. We've heard that term so many times tonight, and I'm not sure how accurate that is. You made a comment about what the taxpayers of Winnebago County pay for salaries is an investment. Certainly. What is the maximum investment you would recommend Winnebago County taxpayers pay for its employees?
Well, I'm not sure that I can answer it in that respect. I think by putting in a compensation system that's fair and equitable to its employees, and that is one that employees can count on. You know, if you're going to put a salary range system in that we've recommended, that it's funded to a logical degree. Now, by that I mean you're not going to be funding it with 8% increases when CPI is at 3%. I mean, that's illogical. But funding it to the extent that CPI or that your tax base can handle. You know, don't sit and look at employees and say that we don't have money when there is money out there. And I don't know if that's what you're doing. So I'm talking in broad, generic terms. I'm not assuming that that's what Winnebago is doing. So I think, you know, if you're saying to your employees, we don't have the money, then let's not go down the road of putting a merit-based system in or putting a salary system in that has a range in, that has an expectation that employees are supposed to move. Then put in a salary system that has one rate that just gets adjusted, and then be done with it. Then be, you know, so I think that's what I mean by, you know, what is fair and equitable, you know, what is it that your employees should expect, then give them what you think they should expect. So what does that mean? I don't know. That's the question I asked when I came here, is what is your expectation of your employees, and how do you think that they should be compensated? And that's the marching orders that I got, and that's the system that I designed based upon those marching orders.
Yes, and I certainly wonder when I hear that terminology, fair and equitable. I'm just curious if there is such a panacea where there ever is anything that's fair and equitable.
No.
When I went to the original rollout meeting, you commented heavily on something you called the Outagamie County effect. And it's also in the executive report. And part of that report says Outagamie comparison. And there's a 3-paragraph summary. And my comment about, there's one line that says, in conversation with the county executive and director of human resources, Winnebago County, although it has a desire to be as competitive, does not have the same fiscal resources to offer salaries as lucrative. What are the differences in the economic output and relative tax base comparing Outagamie and Winnebago counties?
I'm not sure I can answer that question. Those were the questions that I asked in respect to the fact that when we did employee interviews and department head interviews, we consistently heard how Outagamie paid significantly higher than Winnebago. The question was, did they or didn't they? And so we did an analysis of whether Outagamie did or didn't. Outagamie, for a vast preponderance of your positions, does pay significantly higher than Winnebago County. So the question becomes, are you going to then be as competitive to Outagamie or not? And the question, and that was the question I asked you, because I don't know your fiscal resources. I'm not here to make that type of judgment. And so that's why I had the conversation with the county executive and human resources, is how do you want me to handle that perception or that information in respect to Outagamie's wages versus Winnebago's wages. So I can't answer that question other than the fact that what I know of Winnebago versus what I see in Outagamie, obviously I can look at a retail base versus I don't see that significant of a retail base here. So, you know, it's up to you to look to me and say, yes, we do want to be that competitive and build that into your salary system, or no, our tax base is not as lucrative, and no, we can't be, and here's how we want you to handle that situation.
So certainly that is my point. Unless we understand the underlying fiscal principles of what supports a higher wage, then certainly we can differentiate between one wage study and what should be implemented in a neighboring county. I would offer that I think as far as services go, Winnebago County taxpayers are very happy with the services that are provided in Winnebago County. And I don't know that, like, we just received an award for Parkview Mental Health, or Parkview Physical Rehabilitation, et cetera. So we have very high quality services. I don't know if those services necessarily would get any better if we all of a sudden paid a higher wage. It's very similar to, say that my neighbor down the block, if he has a landscaping company come cut the grass, and you know, we'd be gone, come and spray for weeds or whatever, and I just hire my son to cut our grass. You know, it's what can somebody else afford versus what can I necessarily afford.
We have that same, if you don't mind, we have that same conversation.
I'd just like to ask, this is where I'm getting to here is, in regards to this compensation study, if this is what you deemed necessary was to incorporate the Outagamie comparison and the Outagamie effect, can't we see a proposal that eliminates Outagamie County from this comparison? If we don't know what the foundation of the tax base is in a neighboring county that you are establishing or wanting to establish us to pay our employees on, then can't we just eliminate that comparison? I would like to see that as part of what we vote on in July. I would like to see the same numbers that Mr. Fari is talking about with the elimination of Outagamie County. If they're that much higher and we may not be able to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, then I would like to see something that eliminates that potential.
We did eliminate Outagamie in the respect that I think the reasons it's in the executive report is because A, it's very important to your employees. It was important to your employees to the respect that almost every employee meeting we had, we heard about Outagamie and how they pay their employees versus how you pay your employees. Now, with that being said, we also use that as an education moment as well. And what I attempted to very inappropriately interrupt you with is this, because we too talk about the fact that, not necessarily from a tax-based perspective, but we also talk to employees about there are things that are important in a job that are just as important that are also beyond compensation. You know, compensation is important, but that's only one factor within a job. And so we use that, and all of my consultants use that when we hear about Outagamie, is that, you know, there's things that Winnebago provides that maybe Outagamie doesn't, that, you know, yeah, they may have the higher compensation, but why is it that you're working here and not in Outagamie? It could be because it's closer to home, or you have family here, or because they have a different benefit structure here. Those are things that are just as important, and those are the things that you have to weigh into account when you look at why are you working here versus Outagamie. If it's just salary that's important to you, well then you know what? Go work at Outagamie. So, you know, we use that as a teaching moment when we talk with employees. We thought it was important enough to put into the executive report, not so much the fact that you need to be like Outagamie, but the fact that you need to understand that's what's important to your employees, and that was important enough to them that we thought that you should understand that that's what they are thinking about. Did we use it as a comp and say that you need to be like them and your salaries need to be as high as them? No, because if that was your case, your salaries would be higher than what they would be in this report.
And then finally, I'd like to comment about the appeals process. And I know that that was a question that Supervisor Brooks made at the last Personnel and Finance meeting, was specifically in regards to what was previously outlined as Section 2, Number C, about McGrath being, appeals will be decided by McGrath Consulting Group Incorporated, whose decisions regarding appeals will be final. And I was surprised maybe that even without much conversation following that it was approved unanimously by that committee, but maybe even more so I was surprised, very much like this meeting, where most supervisors do not have the executive report, not much information. That committee was provided this resolution as they entered that room, as I was. So they had very little time to review it before voting on it. So just lots of questions. I'm hoping that before July we can get a number of these issues ironed out and clarified. I've never received as much correspondence as I have on this resolution as in my tenure as a county board supervisor. So I'm hoping that we can trudge forward, whatever that looks like, and get the questions answered and move forward. Thank you.
Supervisor Farley, and then we're taking a 5-minute break.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quick question, and I apologize for not bringing it up before, and I want to bring it forward before I forget it again.
No problem.
Basically, I'm back on page 3 for all of the supervisors. I'll look at the mental health technician again. And my focus is on the control point. It's at $41,180. My question that I didn't ask that I would like to know is, if a person's at that point, and I assume they will be brought up to that point, how do they get to range C and range D, and what is the time frame?
Once they move to the control point, then it's still based upon your current merit system. So it's through their performance evaluations. Their evaluations equate to shares. Those shares then get a percentage. That percentage, how fast they get there would be dependent upon A, how much money are you allocating in the pool of merit, and
so there's no steps no more before you go A, B, C, and D, and you go to the next range.
Right. There hasn't been steps for a couple of years, right?
Okay.
Well, the steps were frozen, I think, in 2006 for non-union people and for union people in early 2014.
But then what I'm hearing then is we're going to use a merit system, so actually a person at the control point could be at that point for quite a few years before they reach range C.
Depending
I mean, there's no time frame for them to look at and say, if I work another 10 years, I can reach range C.
Not under a merit-based system. It would be dependent upon how much money you have in the merit-based pool, and then what their rating is on their performance evaluation, and how those shares, you call them shares, how those shares are allocated based upon the merit-based rating.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Mr. Rowe.
The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio.
Report number 1, C.C. Nelson Properties, LLC, Town of Nakaimai. A mandatory ordinance number 060116, rezoning from 1 light industrial to 2 heavy industrial for tax parcel number 012-0086-02. Supervisor Egan.
That should be going to somebody else, I think. Report
Supervisor Keller.
Keller.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance number 060116, zoning from light industrial to heavy industrial. Supervisor Keller.
I move approval of a mandatory ordinance number 060116.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Report number 2, Egan Brothers Incorporated, John R. Egan, Reversible Trust, Sherry A. Egan, Reversible Trust, Town of Amro, Agriculture to R1 Rural Residential, A2 General Agricultural for tax parcel number 016-0719, 016-0718, and 016-0698/01. Supervisor Egan.
I move the report of number 2.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance rezoning from rezoning ordinance number 060216 from rural residential to heavy industrial, A2 General agriculture to R1 rural residential for tax parcel number, to general agriculture for tax parcel number 016, 07, 19, 016, 0718, and 06, 016, 0698-01. Supervisor Egan.
Move for the approval of a mandatory ordinance number 2.
Then moved and seconded to approve a mandatory ordinance number 2. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Report number 3, Tim Nufke, Town of Poigan, a mandatory ordinance 06-03-16, rezoning from R1 rural residential to B2 community business for tax parcel number 020-0091. Supervisor Kreischer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of report number 003.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, one abstention. Carried. Report number 4, Jeffrey Ogden, Town of Neenah.
Mandatory ordinance.
A mandatory ordinance 06-03-16, rezoning from R1 rural residential to B2 community business for tax parcel number 020-0091. Supervisor Kreischer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of mandatory ordinance number 06-03-16.
Then moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Report number 4, Jeffrey Ogden, Town of Neenah. Supervisor, I don't know, who is it?
I will do it.
Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of report number 4.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Raise your hand, those. Oh, I didn't know you could make it. Okay, raise your hands, the noes. Mr. Rule. Supervisor Rule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll get into the vote rather quickly. I was wondering if the Planning and Zoning Committee could explain to us how they would answer the neighboring citizens that live out there that spoke this evening.
Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we looked at this very closely. The neighbors were all there, as you remember, in March when they all showed up here and they talked to us. At our meeting, they also did. This last meeting, there was 4, possibly 6, but no more than that showed up to complain or whatever. We looked at it. The town that does fit within their zoning, that piece of parcel there, and that's what that person would like to do on his piece of land. And we did not see any reason why it could not be put to that, being that it goes along with the town of Neenah's zoning part.
Thank you.
Was there somebody else that wanted to talk? We'll vote by our iPads.
I don't know, are they going to work?
She says they work now.
Do they work?
What are they voting on? The ordinance, right?
They're voting on the report.
On the report or the ordinance?
On the report.
I thought they voted on the report by voice vote.
I thought I had to do it by machine. You're voting on the ordinance. That's what I thought. I was corrected.
Okay, so,
Yeah, just wait. Mr. Bodner, would you explain it?
Are we going to vote on are you voting on the report or the ordinance?
We'll start over. We're going to vote on the report.
Okay. Report just requires a majority vote of those present to accept it. It doesn't mean that you're... On the report, you're just accepting it, which means the zoning department has given it to you and you're accepting the report. That just requires a majority vote of those present. Now, if you accept the report, then on the ordinance, there's a section of the statutes that says if more than 50% of the surrounding landowners have signed a petition indicating their opposition to this amendment, then what's required to approve it goes up from a majority of those present to 3/4 of those present and voting. And that's been done. There's a certification that the zoning department has sent to the clerk indicating that at least 24 hours before this came before the board, that more than half of the people in this, more than half, correct, Carrie? More than half of the people adjacent to this property signed a petition saying that they were in opposition to the ordinance. So now what's required to approve the amendatory ordinance is up from a majority vote to 3/4 of those present and voting. Okay. If you're present but you don't vote on it, you don't get counted in the denominator.
Okay, the report is just a majority. So we'll vote, and we're starting over, so vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove. Yes, just on the report. That's passed. Now we're going to vote on the ordinance. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove.
Need a motion on that, Mr. Chairman? Need a motion on that?
Tom has to make his motion.
Supervisor Egan.
I'd like to make a motion to accept a mandatory ordinance number 4, and then I'd like to speak on it if it's seconded.
Been moved and seconded. Go ahead.
All I'd like to say is this was turned back to the committee. They did study it and did it very well. Some of you that were out on the bus tour, some questions were asked. I believe Mr. Eisen was one that asked questions of the highway commissioner and about having any problems with the driveway on Oak Ridge. He didn't figure that there'd be any as long as there was a study or whatever done on it. As you had seen, the township had come in and said that they figured there'd be very minimal on there. The people had asked that they move back the building and all that. The gentleman has moved back the building. He has gone ahead and dressed it up more. These are all things that we got to look at, and these is what the county has to look at. We got to remember, it's forget that other part that some of you are thinking in your head. Just remember, you got to look at that piece of land and that piece alone. Thank you.
Supervisor Thompson.
My request to speak button didn't work, so perhaps you can recognize me without that. I do believe that the opposition is strong enough and passionate enough to warrant our referring this back to the committee with the strong suggestion that some work be done on some restrictive covenants, if necessary, to make sure that the use is within what the use was supposed to be. It's been brought up to us that all kinds of uses can be used. I think I'm talking about the right one. It's been brought up that all kinds of uses can be made of that land once it's rezoned. And it would seem to me quite appropriate, given the position of so many, many neighbors, that some work ought to be done, perhaps through restrictive covenants, to limit the use to what is now proposed. Apparently, the neighbors are not terribly concerned about the use which is now proposed, but they are very concerned about what could happen later on. And therefore, I move that the matter be returned to the Planning and Zoning Committee for further work and for further recommendations.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to refer it back to the committee for further review. All in favor? Aye. Just wait a minute. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I am correct, it has gone back to both committees. In fact, the Town of Neenah Commissioner for their zoning and stuff is here, and he spoke in favor of this resolution. Our county chair is here and spoke in favor of this resolution. I can understand to a point where some of the neighbors could be a little upset because they don't know for sure. However, though, I do feel and believe that our Planning and Zoning Committee really knows, they do their research before they're going to vote. And I almost bet the same thing will go for the town of Neenah. So I urge everybody to shoot this down. Thank you.
Supervisor Keller.
Return it back to committee. The committee has already reviewed this twice. It's been sent back to committee once already. I assure you, I guess I can't do that. But my strong belief would be if it goes back to committee, it's going to come back here because it's going to be approved again because committee has studied it thoroughly. We've looked at all the angles. We've listened to the zoning administrator and the planning and zoning staff. We've talked to the people from the town of Neenah. And I'm not going to change my vote. I know it's going to come back here, so it would be useless to send it back to committee. The second thing is, I believe the last time this was before the county board, there was a petition from the neighbors which required a 2/3 majority vote to pass. Tonight, Corporation Council is saying 3/4, so I would like to have that confirmed. I was also told by the planning and zoning administrator and the planning staff that there is no covenant that could be put on the deed or the land that would perhaps please the neighbors. So I'd like to just make that known. And I would also like to ask the zoning administrator to come forward and explain that in further detail.
Mr. Bodner, can you answer the question about referring it back?
Okay, first of all, this is what the state statute says. Upon receipt of the agency report, and you've already voted to receive the agency report, the board may enact the ordinances drafted by the zoning agency or with amendments, or it may deny the petition for amendment, or it may refuse to deny the petition as recommended by the agency, which the zoning agency is not recommending that you deny it. So that's not an option. So you really don't have an option of referring it back to the committee. You have to act on it. You can amend it, or you may deny it. You can approve it. You can approve it with amendments, or you can deny it. You can't refer it back to the agency anymore. That's the first thing. Second thing is, because the zoning agency has certified that more than half, the owners of more than half of the property adjacent to this property have signed a petition opposing the amendment, then again, the vote that's required to pass this goes from majority of those present to 3/4 of the members of the board that are present and voting. So if you abstain, you get taken out of the denominator. So it's basically a 3/4 vote. You have 34 people here right now. If 34 vote on it, I think you need 26 or 27 to pass it. I mean, but if some people abstain, that could change. All right. Did I answer your questions, Mr. Keller?
Yeah, if you're confirming it's 3/4, I just recall that it was 2/3 the last time.
Yeah, the statute number is 59.69, subsection 5, subsection E is in Edward, subsection 5G is in George.
Supervisor Knitsky.
Could we have the zoning administrator explain my other question?
What's your question?
The other question was that the residents are asking for some type of a covenant so that what happens there stays what happens there with the deed. And I believe that's not possible, and the zoning administrator, I believe, would be willing to explain that.
I think you have to ask him that question.
Well, that's what I'm doing.
Okay. I thought you were asking me.
No.
Okay.
You can't place conditions or any covenants on a zoning change by law. You cannot place conditions or zoning or covenants on a zoning change by law.
Okay, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With all due respect to the Planning and Zoning Committee, we heard from a representative of the neighbors, the residents of that area, and we have more than half the neighbors who've signed against this. And I think that with all due respect to Planning and Zoning, those residents are our constituents, and they're very leery of this, and I would urge a no vote on this.
Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only question I have, and maybe it's for Corporation Council as well, is we just voted on this in March, and I don't think that this came back by anybody who was on the winning side of this. What's the difference between an amendatory ordinance and bringing it back to the board agenda and a resolution? It seems to me if this failed as a resolution, that somebody who voted on that side of it would have to bring it back, and I don't know that a committee can bring it back.
Mr. Bodner, can you bail us out?
I know this was before the board before. I don't have an independent recollection of what happened, and maybe Mr. Rowe can help me out with that. I thought that, maybe I was wrong, but I thought that the people bringing the petition had voluntarily withdrawn it. Is that correct? Or
The county board had denied it in March, and there's a new county board in place now, and because of that, they're able to bring it forward as a new resolution or ordinance.
That's it. I had no independent recollection of what happened.
Yeah, you can verify.
I appreciate your question.
You can verify that by state statute, though?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you basically, it's Robert's Rules of Order that you know, once something has been denied, you can't bring it back in like you said, but once you have a new board, you're not prohibited forever from bringing something back. Once you have a new board, you can bring a resolution back in that was previously considered by the old board.
Supervisor Gabbert.
Two points I'm going to bring. I do care about the constituents that are around the neighborhood. I've been out there 5 times. I've looked at Oak Ridge Lane. I found all the houses that all the people live in. Mr. Ogden does own this property. He does have his own property rights to this. This was rejected. He reapplied and is bringing this back. If you vote it down, there may be some consequences, which I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that there could be some kind of an appeal made. I voted for this because he's doing absolutely nothing wrong according to the rezoning that is in the comprehensive plan for that property. Yes, it is Ag 2, but that does not mean it needs to stay Ag 2. He has the right to apply for the zoning I-2. He has not done anything wrong there. I do understand that the constituents do not like what's going to be put there, but also he is a constituent, so he does have rights to do things legally on his property by changing the zoning. There is nothing wrong. That is why when it came back to our committee, we listened to the people again. We are well aware of the petition, but in my eyes, he is asking for a zoning change, and that is what I'm looking at. There's nothing wrong with the zoning change that he is asking for, so that's why I voted for this. And I'm going to vote yes for it again tonight. Thank you.
Supervisor Gordon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, I'm sorry, I don't recall your name. Karen. You said that they couldn't put age restrictions if they change the zoning. Is there anything that can be done so that he can get his building, which the neighbors do not have a problem with, but in the future it could not become any of these other?
There's nothing that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Okay, some other people had their hands up. Supervisor Eisen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's an old adage that says, when in doubt, don't. This board has been put between a rock and a hard place because you can't send it back to the committee, and you have a choice of approving it or disapproving it. Now, the amendatory ordinance which was submitted to us has no vote for the committee's approval. What was that vote?
Supervisor Egan?
5-0.
And to boot, this presentation from the residents was so impassioned to a member of the Zoning and Planning Committee that that committee member wants to take a second look. Supervisor Thompson is on the Planning and Zoning Committee, and he is the person who says it's time to take another look. So this is not a slam dunk Planning and Zoning County Board action. Inasmuch as the zoning administrator has said that there's no other alternative to get the particular building that the developer wants, this board has been told by the zoning administrator at the last session that Ag 2, and I recall Supervisor Gabbert also saying you can have a little larger building under an Ag 2 and you can get the same effect. You can have your storage shed for your buildings, and you can do it under Ag 2. I would urge my colleagues to defeat this just like you did it the last time, because you've got to stand up for your citizens. And I think that the supervisors that live in that neighborhood and adjoining neighborhood, who are the supervisors for the constituents there, they ought to get on the stick also, because you dropped the ball with the intersection and the traffic light. Don't drop the ball again.
Supervisor Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was argued by one county board member, whom I respect and sits next to me, that this has been approved and Mr. Ogden owns the property and he can do what he be allowed to do what he wants to do. I would like to remind the board that when Mr. Ogden obtained that property, he knew what it was zoned as, and it was zoned appropriately. And I think it needs to be continued as in its appropriate zoning. You cannot argue terribly strongly that if you bought a piece of property that was owned in one way, that you somehow have a right to have it rezoned. I also have the impression, just by the way, that there is a motion on the floor, I can't remember what it was, for, to send it back. That seems to be impossible. Does that motion have to be disposed of? It was moved and seconded that we send it back to the committee. I was the mover, and I would withdraw.
So do you want to withdraw it?
I'm sorry?
So are you going to withdraw it?
If it is possible for the mover to withdraw it and the seconder to withdraw the second, I would certainly do that. Because
Everybody
I'm told
agreed?
that we can't do what my motion
Who seconded
intended.
it?
Supervisor Eisen. Supervisor Eisen.
You going to withdraw it?
I withdraw.
Okay, they will all,
So the motion then to bring it back to the committee has been withdrawn, right?
yes.
Good.
So we're all according to Hoyle, Mr. Wagner?
I think so.
So now what, we're going to vote on the original. Supervisor Olson.
I don't mean to drag this out, but the comment that you don't have a right to do with your property in terms of rezoning kind of is contradictory to what we do every time we have a meeting. Look at tonight, rezoning from I-1 light industry, rezoning from R1 rural residential, rezoning from R1 residential to B2 community business. So it happens all the time. So I don't think you can say that, well, he doesn't have a right to rezone. Everybody has a right to rezone. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing that I think we're missing here is that the town of Neenah has approved this. I don't live up there. I'm on the town board for town of Algoma. We've had these things come to our board. We do due diligence with it. And I would hope that some respect is given to the local government as to what they think, because they live right there. You know, I would hope that somebody on the other end of the county doesn't vote something on our township. So I think that town of Neenah approved has some weight here. Thank you.
Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be the last time to go along with Supervisor Rasmussen. The chairman from up there did come and say that they did support it wholeheartedly. He had twice. He was here tonight, but he didn't say anything. But that they have supported it all the way along. So this year. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we'll vote by our little iPad. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove.
Oh, okay, 10 left.
So what is it? What is it? That is passed. A mandatory ordinance number 060516, Town of Clayton on behalf of Greg Kieberlin to change from R1 rural residential to A2 general agriculture for tax parcel number 006-0031-07-02. Supervisor Fari?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of a mandatory ordinance number 5.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion by anybody? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 27-62016. Supervisor Rasmussen.
This resolution is being pulled. This will give everybody a chance to get the executive report, and as we heard in the presentation, there's some loose ends that need to be cleaned up, and so this will be taken off until next month. Thank you.
It'll be on our July meeting. Resolution number 017-6, 2016, disallow claim of Marvin R. Darby, date of loss 3-3-2016. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 17-6, 2016.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 018-62016, commendation for Joseph Vanderheiden. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you. I move for resolution number 18-6, 2016.
Been moved and seconded.
Joe Vanderheiden began his 24-year career with Winnebago County in 1992 as a maintenance worker 2 in the maintenance department at Parkview Health Center. He worked hard at keeping the buildings he was assigned to functioning at high efficiency and comfortable for the residents. In 2010, Joe transferred to the facilities department, where his efforts helped keep the new Parkview in like-new condition. He also applied his talent to taking care of all the buildings in the county. His work brought him numerous accolades from fellow employees. Joe has been a constant positive force in the county. His enthusiasm and willingness to learn and try new things was an inspiration for the entire facilities staff. Please join me in expressing our gratitude for Joe's 24 years of service and best wishes for his future and retirement.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 019-6, 2016, commendation of Lewis V. Clark III. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you. I move for resolution 19-6, 2016.
Second.
Lewis Clark began his career with Winnebago County approximately 34 years ago. He worked for the facilities department prior to coming to the highway department in 1982. Lewis was a very dependable and hardworking employee for the county. He was always committed to doing a good job and was very thorough in everything he did. For the last few years, Lewis was a grade all foreman and ran crews doing ditching and drainage work along with other miscellaneous projects. Not many people know that Lewis spent a fair amount of time of his free time writing and was a published author, having written a book on Green Bay Packer history. He's also a devoted Cubs fan. With 34 total years of county service, Louis retired from the Highway Department in May of 2016. Please join me in expressing our gratitude and best wishes as he enjoys his retirement.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 020-6, 2016, commendation of Charmaine Beck. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you. I move for resolution 26, 2016. Second. Char Beck retired from the Parkview Health Center on June 1st after 27 years of dedicated service. She began her employment in food service and later transferring to the housekeeping department, where she finished her career as a custodian. Char has always had a cheerful, positive attitude and a good sense of humor that was well received by all. Please join me in expressing our wholehearted gratitude for Char's years of service and best wishes for her future in retirement.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 021-6, 2016, commendation for Loanne Owens flag. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you. I move for resolution 21-6, 2016. About 35 years ago, Loanne Owens Flag started working with our finance department and later came to the highway department as accountant office manager. Loanne was a very dependable and hardworking employee for the county. She learned the highway accounting process very quickly and very soon became the go-to person for highway budget and project issues. A large part of her job was coordinating the budget and financial issues involved with the county doing state maintenance work. Loanne was very well respected on a statewide basis, and in particular her work with the DOT Machinery Management Committee. When not at work, Luann enjoyed riding motorcycles with her husband John, also a county highway employee. With 35 total years of county service, Luann retired from the Highway Department in May of 2016. Please join me in expressing our gratitude and best wishes as she enjoys her retirement.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 022-6, 2016, proclaim July as Recreation and Parks Month in Winnebago County. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This particular resolution was brought in by Supervisor Norton, and I feel it's only right. And Mike. Okay. This particular resolution was brought in by Supervisor Mike Norton. And I feel it's only right that, he took the time and the effort to look this over, that I would like to have Mike bring this forward to the county board.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I brought this forward kind of pretty basic because in the Wisconsin Park and Recreation Association newsletter a few weeks ago, the director declared July as Recreation Parks Month for the whole state of Wisconsin. And I guess I wanted to make it localized and make it Winnebago County. And I just want to point out a few things since we last met. Yesterday at the Winnebago County Parks meeting, Trish New from the East Central Wisconsin gave us the Winnebago County Economic Impact Study on Parks and Trails. And maybe we can find a way to make sure that by next meeting we all get it, because there's some very useful information, some very good information, like people who come to our first cities of Oshkosh, Dean, and Menasha, come for reason other than going and using the trail system, but they still use the trail system. The second thing, the month of July is full of different events, especially at the community park. July 7th starts Life Fest. A couple Saturdays after that, I encourage you, come to Soccer Saturday. You'll see probably the most people ever on Soccer Saturday. Friday and Saturday, that's when we have the end of the year tournament. Not just because it's Oshkosh Youth Soccer, yes, that's what uses it, but there are kids from Oshkosh, Amarillo, Winnebago, and we found out some even from the international. I would encourage you to do that. But also, since we last met, the Winnebago County Parks Department did their annual, did their annual tour, and I agree with Supervisor Knitsky, who at the end of it said it was their best tour ever, because we found some interesting and gems. Like, we went to the Walkall Pond, and we found people bow fishing. I never thought that was possible. No, they did, but they're actually fishing with bow and arrow. We went to a place which on our map I've never been to. Been on Parks Committee almost 12 years. I think none of us on the Parks Committee were on it, have been to this. Lasley Point, which is a place up by the town of Neenah in Supervisor Snyder's district, which is an archaeological gem, and that hopefully we can interest students, archaeological students from Madison to come to it. But really was an interesting tour. And here's my challenge to every one of my colleagues, since if this passes, that go to a Winnebago County park, a trail, community park, take a picture, send it to Vicki Redland, and let's get that on the County Parks Facebook page, because one of the things we're trying to do with this resolution is to encourage, I'm supposed to try to encourage my fellow supervisors to go to county parks and see them. So that's one reason why I brought it forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought he did that.
No,
I'm sorry. I might bring forward Resolution 022-62016. I'm sorry. I thought that was the chairman's responsibility.
It was moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 023-6, 2016. Appropriate an additional $100,000 to the asphalt replacement project for the Knapp Street parking lot and fund with the transfer from the general fund undesignated fund balance. Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Norton mentioned soccer several times. At 8 o'clock, the United States versus Argentina began, so hopefully we'll get to see the second half. I would like to move forward resolution number 023-62016.
Been moved and seconded.
This project, if I may, this project was brought forth a little over a year ago. There were several hang-ups with the city of Oshkosh. obviously a lot of delay, which has resulted in increased expenses for gravel and asphalt, as I understand it, and therefore we're looking for an additional $100,000.
Okay. Here I thought it was Isaiah made a mistake on how he bid it out, but I guess not. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? No. 3 noes. Carried. Resolution number 024-6/2016. Everybody's looking at me. I was wondering what I did wrong. Haig was one. Who all, raise your hand who voted no? Olson, just 2. Resolution number 24-6/2016. Combine capital projects to repair the courthouse plaza deck and add the security addition and appropriate an additional $250,000 to the project to be funded with the bond proceeds. Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the acceptance of Resolution 024-62016.
Been moved and seconded.
If I may. If you recall, there were 2 resolutions that were passed 10 months ago, 11 months ago. One was for the plaza deck and one was for the courthouse security. Since that time, bids have been let, and as the county executive has told you, in this day and age, the number of bidders is sometimes quite minimal. In this case, it was 1. Because the successful bidder is the same construction company doing both projects, both facilities and finance are requesting that they combine that just to make bookkeeping easier. And since there was only 1 bidder, it wound up coming in $250,000 more than what we had anticipated. Thank you.
Supervisor Olson.
Thank you. I have a number of issues with this. Is this going to be our standard operating procedure going forward? We're going to get 1 bid and then just take that bid without negotiation and then have them come back a few months later and say, oh, well, we need another $250,000. I'm surprised at how some people here are just kind of saying, okay, let's give them another $250,000 out of taxpayer money because they blew it. No, we blew it too. If this is the way the estimating process is going to go, then why submit an initial amount in the first place? Because if we're going to have something to vote on and then come back 3 months later to vote on another $250,000, it doesn't seem to be efficient to me. I have to vote no on this because I don't think this was a good process at all. And I'm really surprised that some people take this so easily when there are other projects in this county where every little single dime is questioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the committee vote being 4-0 on this, I was not in attendance at this meeting. However, I would have voted for it. And it's simply because the 1 bidder is simply because of the historical nature of the building. Many other contractors, in fact, all but 1 contractor in this specific instance was chased off by the nature of the project itself. So that's why we have 1 bidder. The other reason we have 1 bidder is simply because of the recent economy. Building is coming back now, which is not favorable for us. But because building was off so drastically since 2008-ish, a lot of the smaller contractors went out of business, so that there are not as many contractors in the field, especially the contractors who would bid on projects of this nature. So I just feel that this project is important enough to move forward with it. And although I do have the same concerns to a certain extent as my colleague, Mr. Olson, I fear what putting this project off another year or 2 or 3 might mean. Would that $250,000 then potentially become $500,000 or $1 million. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I will be voting in the affirmative on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Forey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am sympathetic to Mr. Olson's comments. I will be voting for this, but I put together some numbers here that combining all the projects that we're talking about, combining the two and the additional $250,000, comes to a total of $2,222,000 for this project. So let's hope there's no additional cost found some or need. I will vote for it, but I'm disappointed also with the process a little bit. So just those thoughts.
Was there anybody else that had a comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose?
No.
No.
2 noes. Resolution number 025-6. Resolution number 025-6/2016 authorized the Public Health Department to accept a $118,398 grant from the Medical College of Wisconsin to address mental health issues in Winnebago, Outagamie, and Calumet counties and appropriate the funds for that proposed program. Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of Resolution 025-62016. Just really quickly, just to add a little bit more information. I won't spend too much time because the hour is certainly long, but this is a significant award for our area. This is actually one of 10 in the state. And what you're approving tonight is the first 6 months of funding, but this is actually an award over 8 years of up to $1.5 million. And what it's designed to do is very broad-based, where you're bringing different organizations from a community together to look at a systems approach as to how to improve mental health care in our area. So it's really something involving not only Winnebago County, we're essentially the fiscal agent, but also Outagamie County and Calumet County. And a major player in this whole initiative is something called the Northeast Wisconsin Mental Health Connection as well. And they're an organization already in place that will help facilitate this grant. What you're really approving is for the funding of the first 6 months, and then the resolution to follow is for the 2 individuals or staff members who will help organize and bring to fruition this initiative. So I certainly would move for your approval tonight. Thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 026-6/2016, amend the table of organization for Winnebago County Health Department. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Mr. Chairman, move for resolution number 26-6/2016. As Supervisor Ramos said, this is for the 2 positions needed to administer that program.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Supervisor Konitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whoops, you caught me off guard here. I move to adjourn until
July. Nobody knows.
July 19th at 6 p.m.
We are adjourned.
I know I should have warned you.